George Russell's future in Formula One is becoming more and more questionable, not because of his talent, but because of Mercedes' preferences. He knows that Max is the top priority for his current team, and he needs to be working with another team if something out of his reach happens. Red Bull and Aston Martin have the most potential to showcase the British driver. Could we see a massive swap between Verstappen and Russell? And if so, will Russell's career take a downfall from this move? I think I speak for everyone when I say we kind of feel sorry for George Russell. He's been under the spotlight for quite a long period of time, and quite frankly, he didn't do anything wrong. He's very consistent, has been on par with the top drivers on the grid, and is actually very close to Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. He also won a race in Canada. But at the end of the day, his seat is under threat because of Max Verstappen. When a four-time world champion becomes available, I don't think you want to miss such an opportunity. Hence the talks between Wolff and Verstappen in Sardinia. So be that as it may, Russell needs to be looking for alternatives. The biggest and most obvious one is Red Bull, because they're the ones who'd have to part ways with Max. The Austrian team saw an entire crumble happen in front of them. It started with Newey last year during the Miami GP and ended all the way with the immediate termination of her contract. In between these, we've seen Jonathan Wheatley and Corin leave Red Bull. And if Max Verstappen is next, it's a clear indicator that something is totally wrong with the Milton Keynes base squad. This could be the biggest challenge for Russell, joining a team that's struggling to find the right path and rebuilding around you. Yep, he does have the leader status in Mercedes as we speak, but he also has an extremely talented teammate in Antonelli, who's dubbed to be the next superstar of the sport. Russell doesn't have a contract for 2026, whereas Antonelli does, and this only puts the Brit in a more difficult position to keep his seat alive. To make matters more complicated, Mercedes are the ones who manage George's career. So ultimately, they'd have to sit down with George and tell him that he is no longer the best choice for their team. But according to Russell, these talks are not something that he takes personally, and he doesn't feel offended by them. Elaborating further on this, the Mercedes driver said, "Every team has two seats available, and it's normal that every team is considering what the future holds. I don't take that personally because I made it clear from the beginning. I'm happy to be teammates with anybody. Of course, there are lots of conversations, lots of rumors, and all of these are being pointed towards me. But from my side, I feel that it isn't really going to be the case. I want to continue with Mercedes into the future. But if a move of Russell away from Mercedes happens, George's departure to Red Bull could be a bit more challenging because the Austrian team doesn't have Christian Horner at the helm right now. The Brit was reported to have held talks with his compatriot in case something emerged between Wolff and Verstappen, and these two couldn't do anything about it. But now that Horner doesn't hold the reins in Red Bull anymore, it's interesting to see whether they'd want to go for an outside hire in George or whether they'd want to promote from within. The car has been performing really badly, and if it weren't for Max, I don't think Red Bull would be in the midfield, potentially a backmarker team. With the new arrival of Laurent Mekies, the former team principal of Racing Bulls, the philosophy of Red Bull might switch towards promoting young talent like Arvid Lindblad and Isaac Hadjar to the senior team. Of course, it's a bold move, and it's something that Mercedes committed to with Antonelli. But at the end of the day, it could pay off massively. The big difference here is that we're headed into a newly regulated era, and experience mattered a lot here. That's why Peter Bayer, the CEO of Racing Bulls, said that he would handcuff Hadjar if he had to until the end of 2026, just to not let him go to the Austrian squad. This development of events gives Russell a great opportunity to join the team that will start the season with their own powertrains, badged by Ford, and show Mercedes that they made a huge mistake by letting him go. On the other hand, Red Bull is not the only interested party in Russell. Let's not forget about Aston Martin. The Silverstone-based squad has also brought a lot of high-profile personnel to their team, starting with Adrian Newey and ending all the way up with Andy Cowell, Enrico Cardile, and most importantly, Honda. Russell and Cowell collaborated in Mercedes for a brief period of time, and this reunion could definitely turn out to be beneficial for the Silverstone-based squad. There have been reports that Lawrence Stroll sees Russell as the cornerstone of their new project. But with their contract situation being very complicated with Alonso and Stroll, some heavy bricks would have to be moved in order to make this happen. Because of a nepotistic relationship at Aston Martin, it's highly unlikely that Russell will take over Lance's seat. The Canadian driver is currently on yearly contracts with his team, and Alonso does have a contractual obligation for 2026 as well. Still, the two-time world champion understands the nature of things, and he knows better than anyone else that if a driver like Russell suddenly becomes available, he would have to move and make a place for him. The future of Fernando is sealed. He's set to become an ambassador in Aston Martin after he retires. So whether he drives one more year or not, I don't think it changes a lot for him.